Hey guys, and welcome to what is an extremely overdue episode of Suit Up, the Warframe frame review series. Today we're going to be taking a look at a frame that quite a few of you have noticed me using in videos lately. Another extremely underrated frame, Zephyr. Now Zephyr was introduced way back in update 12, as an addition to the Clan Dojo Tello lab, requiring each part to be individually researched and then built. Zephyr is a very time-consuming frame when starting out, but once her research is done, she's probably one of the easiest frames to pick up and to build. Ever since her release though, she's been shockingly underused, and nearly completely forgotten by all but a few of her more dedicated fans. And well, I'm really struggling to work this out. So why is she so underused and so underplayed? Well, let's have a look at her skill set to be able to figure that one out. Zephyr's first ability is Tailwind, where she creates a blast of energy propelling Zephyr through the air, damaging anything in her wake. Essentially what this does is if you're on the ground when you activate Tailwind, she will launch herself straight up into the air to a distance determined by power duration. One of the best things about the initial effect from a ground-based Tailwind activation is that Zephyr will also knock enemies down in a radius around her, giving this ability not only great maneuverability, but also some pretty decent crowd control as well. However, this isn't the only use of Tailwind, because as the use changes when she's in mid-air. If the ability is activated when she's mid-air, it will do another launch towards where the cursor is. And it can be either straight up for extra height to get to secret areas such as some in the void, or whether it's horizontal to use as a method of speedrunning missions. The best thing about this is that when speedrunning, Tailwind can be cast in this manner even when simply jumping, rather than having to come off the back of a vertical Tailwind launch. Tailwind is an absolutely fantastic ability for maneuverability, and synergizes really well with her second ability absolutely fantastically. And so, Zephyr's second ability, Dive Bomb, in which Zephyr nosedives towards the ground, creating an explosion on contact. Pretty much, when she's in the air, she will dive back down to earth, stopping herself with her face, and doing damage at the same time. Honestly, there's not a huge amount to this ability. The higher you are when you activate Dive Bomb, it increases the damage done by it on the landing, meaning that a really long duration on Tailwind means that you'll actually get a pretty decent descent, and you'll get a pretty reasonable amount of damage. And obviously power strength is going to affect the blast radius and the damage done. In addition to that, Dive Bomb will always set off the heavy impact mod effect, no matter what the height, meaning that it can be used in tight spaces with ease. And Dive Bomb can be cast while simply jumping, or even just falling as well, which is absolutely fantastic and really helps out a lot. Dive Bomb actually comes with an augment as well, Dive Bomb Vortex, which will drag all enemies within the 12-meter radius to the point of the Dive Bomb's impact, which can be increased with the use of range mods. This mod is one of the most underrated Syndicate mods for frames, and has actually become a staple mod on my Zephyr build, especially if you're going melee only, dragging everyone into one massive heap including the knockdowns from Dive Bomb itself, opening everything up to ground finishers. This mod is absolutely fantastic, and definitely should be considered by any Zephyr player. The way I've used it is, well, most efficiently is not using it with Tailwind, but just simply jumping. You're still going to get the same sucking effect, without the insanely long cast time of essentially 2 abilities to get the same result. It's absolutely amazing, and since it synergizes so well with Zephyr's third ability, Turbulence, which relies on power range quite a lot, casting Turbulence creates a wind shield around Zephyr, redirecting all incoming projectiles. Quite frankly, this is Zephyr's bread and butter skill, and a properly modded Turbulence can render pretty much every single ranged weapon completely ineffective to her. Now, Turbulence has 2 parts to it. It's got an inner and an outer shield. The inner shield, which is only 4 meters by default, deflects projectiles with flight time, such as things like Daras or Supras or the Ogris, that sort of thing. But there's also a second outer shield, which is much larger, 25 meters base range, that causes all hit scan based weapons, like pretty much all Grineer weapons, a whole bunch of the corrupted ones, to have greatly reduced accuracy, but only if fired whilst in the area of effect of the Turbulence. Now this ability doesn't make Zephyr completely immune from damage. Homing rockets from things like the annoying bombards are never going to miss. AoE attacks like sapping ospreys and scorches are also going to hit no matter where they are in relation to the shield. In addition to that, any hit scan weapon fired from outside of the outer shield will also still have its normal accuracy, and Turbulence provides no cover whatsoever. Normally, Turbulence is going to only be useful against the Corpus due to small shield affecting the projectiles no matter where they are from. However, with a bit of creative modding, Turbulence can be made to work against any and all factions, as I show in my standard build later. Turbulence, like Dive Bomb, also comes with a Syndicate mod, Jetstream. This pretty much turns Turbulence into a Vault-like speed buff to the team with a 40% increased movement speed, and also an extra 100% projectile speed for flight time based weapons. This Syndicate mod can be picked up from New Loka or Red Veil, and I would definitely recommend doing this if you prefer running Zephyr over Vault. The likelihood is that normally when speedrunning you're going to have Turbulence up anyway, and it is going to give you that extra speed buff, which like Vault speed, can be upgraded using power strength mods. Even if you don't take advantage of that projectile flight speed, it's definitely worth it. Now, I'm going to be honest here, as you've noticed so far, power strength isn't really something that's worth putting on Zephyr, and as such, most people run negative strength builds for her. So any build for just Jetstream is going to end up being a seriously focused build, specifically for that, rather than just being able to slot it into a standard build, as I will show later with my speedrun Zephyr build. And so finally, onto her fourth ability, Tornado, where quite simply Zephyr creates multiple deadly tornadoes. This ability is one of the most unique in the whole of Warframe. Each tornado has an initial damage and then does damage per second to enemies in that tornado. Further to that, it will suck all enemies up that get close to the tornado, giving this ability fantastic crowd control. Not only that, the tornadoes will have a chance to proc status on the enemy as well, which can be actively controlled by the player. On the initial cast, the tornado does magnetic damage, with the chance obviously to proc the magnetic proc. However, both enemies and friendly units can change the elemental damage of the tornado by damaging the tornado directly, meaning that if you hit the tornado with a weapon doing viral damage, it will now do viral procs rather than the base magnetic. This can be changed as well, however there is a priority list of elementals, and using one of a higher priority will override the current damage profile, and I'm going to put this priority list in the description of the video below. The thing about the tornado is that while it's undeniably fantastic crowd control, the actual casting of the tornadoes can be massively hit or miss. Since the tornado is going to spawn near enemies, and since this is not a line of sight ability, the chance for the tornado to simply disappear behind a wall and do almost nothing to help you at all is extremely high. The other issue is that the range that the tornadoes will form is affected by power range, and since range is beneficial to the other three abilities, it hurts the fourth ability, which is not really the most helpful thing ever. Don't get me wrong, when it works it's fantastic, but it goes wrong far too often, and often at the times you really don't want it to go wrong. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod Zephyr. Now she comes with a D polarity aura as standard, as well as a V and a dash, but we're going to add a single former to the weapon, which is going to be a D. Now this is pretty much my standard build, just for everyday use. We've got Prime Continuity and Constitution, which is going to bring up really good duration, which is going to be fantastic for Turbulence. Constitution also has the knockdown recovery, so if you do get knocked down, this actually will help you get up much faster, which is absolutely fantastic. Streamline Fleeting Expertise for the efficiency. We've got Stretch and Overextended, which is going to help both the Dive Bomb Vortex as well as your Turbulence. And we've got Redirection for a little bit of survivability. And we've got Dive Bomb Vortex, which is going to be the mod that we're going to use for pretty much the majority of the crowd control, especially when our tornadoes are on cooldown, since they can't be recast. In terms of the speedrun build I was talking about earlier, again we've got Rejuvenation as the aura, we've got Transient Fortitude and Intensify, which is going to bring up the power strength we need for the Jetstream. We've got Narrow-Minded and Prime Continuity to keep the Turbulence up for as long as possible, and to lessen the need of recasting. We've got Stretch, which is going to help us a little bit with the turbulence, as well as the team buff that you need for Jetstream, and then obviously Fleeting and Streamline for the efficiency. Now, these two mods are pretty much the only two. Well, in fact, they are the only two builds I actually use for Zephyr. This is pretty much my standard build. Even when I'm speedrunning stuff, I tend to use this build more than the Jetstream one. The Jetstream build is good, but it's no Volt. The thing is, Volt with shocking speed is so much better as a speedrunner. But if you don't want to be, one with the crowd, everyone using Volt at the moment, then this is actually a pretty good alternative. Plus, no one uses Zephyr, so if you want to be different, Zephyr as a speedrunner definitely works fantastically well. However, this is the build I would go for the majority of the time. I absolutely love that Dive Bomb Vortex, especially when you use it with melee only. It is incredible. So much fun. So do I feel that she deserves the time and effort invested in her to max her out? And the answer to that is surprisingly, of course she is. Let's be honest, it's not much of a surprise. She's an absolute ton of fun to play. Her ability to put on turbulence and ignore almost all damage is absolutely insane. Running through missions at breakneck speed, maneuverability levels that are absolutely off the chart. But more than that, the combination of Dive Bomb and the Vortex Syndicate mod is absolutely incredible. If you absolutely want to kick ass when you're melee, put on turbulence, jump into the air, Dive Bomb, watch every unit drag to your feet, where you can just finish them off with the ground finisher of whatever melee you've got equipped. It is insane fun to use and fantastically effective. So more so than people give it any credit for. Zephyr is another one of those frames that has sat in my arsenal, unloved, unplayed, and now I've given her the chance, taking the time to learn her skill set, fine tune my playstyle to suit the frankly unique way she plays. I'm having insane fun with her. And I really don't understand why people don't give her a chance. She might just surprise you. Now, that's not to say she doesn't have some downsides. Obviously, damage on a frame ultimately isn't the best way to go on any frame, which is good because the numbers that she puts out are pretty poor at best. But the problem is that you need to mod for duration and range on turbulence, which in turn makes Tailwind go an insane distance. Not great if you're trying to combine Tailwind and Dive Bomb, plus the Vortex. Plus, if you want to use Dive Bomb for damage, there is very few places where you can actually achieve the height needed to do decent damage, plus the time it takes to pull off. You're better at shooting them, quite frankly. I have to admit though, there are a couple of things I would love to see changed with Zephyr, and I think would actually sort of change her immensely, and just make her much easier to use. Firstly is a change to Tailwind. I'd love to see greater control, so that either the longer you hold down the one button for her power, the further she would go to a limit extended by duration. Or a similar way to Ember's World on Fire, where it could be toggled as well as have a duration. This would give her much greater control over her Tailwind, so you don't constantly launch past things all the time, and it would really help with her Dive Bomb a lot. Secondly is that the tornadoes spawn where the marker is, and have some sort of pathfinding from there. Currently there's almost complete lack of control over where the tornadoes spawn, and after they spawn, the way they move is pretty odd and pretty erratic, and it just doesn't seem to pathfind to enemies at all. The inconsistency of the spawning of the tornadoes really hurts Zephyr a lot, and I'm not fussed about the damage it does or anything. It doesn't need a damage increase because it's not really a damage ability, but the status chance is good enough to create havoc, as well as the crowd control from the tornadoes themselves. It's just that one thing, the spawning mechanic, needs cleaning up. But in effect, Zephyr is a fantastic frame with great crowd control and surprisingly effective as a melee frame. She's a ton of fun, and provided your clan has the research done already, she's easy to acquire. Definitely worth adding to your arsenal. You're going to have an absolute blast playing her. I know I have. As always guys, many thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, it helps me out a ton, and I shall see you in the next episode.